Hi, guys. After a long wait, Ryan and I are back with the Powder Keg podcast. We are here to discuss the 2025 upcoming free agency. There's going to be a lot going on, a lot to discuss. But first off, Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited, man. And last season's gone. We're very much on the path to next season. Future's bright. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And we had a good season, man. It was a lot of fun. It didn't end the way we wanted it to. I think it instilled a lot of confidence in us for the general manager we have, right? I mean, that was what he was able to do with
Chef Hortiz.
Chef Ortiz, man. Limited ingredients, but came out with quite a dish. And him and Jim. So we got a lot of hope going into this year. And there's a lot to dive into because unlike last year, we have a ton of capital, both in draft, both in cap space. Yes, yes. It's going to be time to spend. But yeah, so let's dive right in, man. You and I have been talking about um, kind of the limitations we have with or sorry, not limitations, but the holes we have on our roster, what's going to be going on. This is a spreadsheet that I have going live for everyone that's watching on YouTube. I try to keep this thing running as much as I can, but it's a little tracker of what our cap health looks like at this exact moment. So you have our previous season rollover. We didn't spend just a little under 5 million last year. You have our salary cap. I have it set at 275 million. That's a rough estimate that a lot of people kind of are gravitating towards. So we're hovering right under 60 million, just about. And then you factor in season moves, and why you might see that number being different than what you see on over the cap and stuff like that is when I track these spreadsheets, I like to fill them up with players all the way down to the 53rd spot. And I actually added a 54th on this one because Khalil Mack is factored in with some void money here. So to get to 53, I actually had to put a 54th. So this, along with the 7 million we should account for in-season moves, about $4 million for above these minimum contracts I have and to allocate for rookie contracts. We're at about a $47 million spending budget, essentially over those minimum contract amounts. So that's a really quick synopsis. We don't have to dive into it yet, but this sheet is what helps keep me sane and what I love using to try to track some of these moves. But when you and I have been talking, Ryan, we've discussed that kind of our holes on this roster right now are backup quarterback, starting running back, starting wide receiver, starting tight end, backup tight end, or like a kind of like a what would you classify as the backup there? Because I put it in layman's terms, Ryan. But for that rotational tight end, what are you looking
You
for?
so rotational one, we're looking at a H-back. Someone that can play a bit of multiple roles, get in the backfield. Across the formation, but someone's got to be able to block and move. Athletic types is what we talked about before. So yeah, that's what I'd refer to that. No, is a H back.
Something that we kind of missed this year. We went the opposite route
Mm.
and just got big boys and let them just try to.
And tried to make them move.
I mean, Fisk in the playoff game actually came down with a sick catch, but I wouldn't mind seeing him back. But he might be a guy that's in that fourth spot, probably not going to be active a lot. Might even be a practice squad
Mm.
guy if they really attack the position. Who knows? But then we got starting center, a depth center, starting guard, a depth guard, a starting edge player, starting interior defensive lineman, a starting nose tackle, rotational cornerback, and that third safety that Elijah Molden filled in for. So is that kind of a complete list right now, Ryan, or what else would you like to see there?
It's off. That's offense with defense, and yeah, I think that's obviously the results show where we're pointed with that. So I'll probably say yeah, that's a third safety, maybe even and probably a depth safety is probably what I'd say on top of that as well.
Another
Um,
safety as well. Got it. All right.
yeah, I mean, you saw what happened this season with the if you've got a few older players on the team, any injuries can scupper you. I mean, like obviously that can be a day three or even unrestricted, at the end of the draft. So yeah, just someone who can learn in this
Yeah.
system, which would be good because yeah, we've got quite a lot of experience back there, and obviously you've got the young guys at corner, but yeah, no, need a few younger bodies on defense in general.
I love it. I love it. So what we have done now, what Ryan and I have created is a list of our outgoing free agents that played a significant role this year and likely are going to earn a contract that will be either at or close to eligible for a compensatory pick. That's any free agent that was with the Chargers last year that goes and signs elsewhere is going to be compensatory eligible as long as they sign before the draft and as long as they sign above a certain amount. It's got to be roughly in that almost $3.5 million range is normally the cutoff for getting that 7th round pick. And then it goes up from there. But what we've got is, like I said, we haven't. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I'm a layman when it comes to this stuff. So,
yeah.
Does it go up with the salary cap going up? Like, does it jump the same amount, like percentage wise?
It's a great question.
That ceiling.
It's all based on if you were to stack all of the contracts in the NFL. I forget what the breakdown is, but like the top percentage of contracts, like if you signed a $25 million deal, that would get you a 3rd round pick. The top, like between the 6% or 5.1, and I forget what those numbers are off the top of my head, but it's all percentage based on your ranking in the NFL. So normally the bottom end moves up a little bit, not as quickly as the cap rises, because most of that money, as we know, gets allocated towards the big boys making the good dough. Sure. And actually the vet or the minimums, but that kind of 2.5, 3 million, 3.5 million range doesn't move up as quickly as some of those other ranges do. So the 7th rounders kind of hover right around that same spot, it seems like. But yeah, so this is what we're doing now is we've got them stacked in a cancellation chart, because if you know and have read anything that I've ever written or watched any of our videos, I'm obsessed with comp picks, and Joe Hortiz is as well. And that's why I love him so much. And what we can do here, Ryan, is determine from this list who we would like to retain on our team. You're going to tell me who you think is a guy that we absolutely need to keep in this scheme on this team. We're going to go over what that person's probably going to make. We're going to plug them out and have them fill a need. And then some of the guys, if you tell me, Kyle, we can let that person test the market, we'll leave them in here. Or we might drop them down lower as somebody that like we do want to bring back, but we're going to let them test, but we'll see. And to show how this kind of worked last year, here's last year's compensatory cancellation chart according to Over the Cap. As you can see, we had, and this is kind of what we discussed and thought was going to happen last year, but some of these numbers got a lot crazier than we thought they were going to be. But we kind of knew Kenneth Murray, Gerald Everett, Austin Eckler, Austin Johnson, and Michael Davis were the ones that were going to be most likely to sign for a compensatory value. Or at least some of those guys might have been on the fringe. Wasn't really sure about Davis, wasn't sure about Johnson, but they ultimately did sign for compensatory values. Joe Hortiz averaged in the years that I was tracking it from like 2011 to I think it was 2019 or something like that, or 2020. He averaged about 2 comp picks per year with the Ravens. They're always trying to bring in a plethora of them, but they average right around 2. So when you're looking at a compensatory chart and trying to figure out how many compensatory free agents we're likely to bring in, try to create a chart and have this left side have at least 2 or 3 more players than what you see on the right side getting canceled out. As you can see, we only brought in, actually it doesn't have dates on it, but when that pre-negotiating window was open, the tampering window, Gus Edwards was the only guy we signed right away. That was a compensatory free agent. We got him locked up very quickly, probably because they were okay with canceling out one of these lower end contracts and getting only 2 compensatory 3 picks, maybe 3. As things progressed, Kenneth Murray signed a couple days after free agency opened. Eckler, Everett, the same deal. I think Davis and Eckler were the following week. Austin Johnson was as well. Those guys all signed for amounts that surprised most of us and jumped us in what we were going to be able to get back. And I believe it was like March 28th or something like that. After all those signings, they went in and said, hey, we can afford to sign a Christian Fulton and lose one of these 7th round picks, we're still probably going to have a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th, or a 6th, a 6th, and a 7th, depending on how things shake up with the rest of free agency. So what we're trying to do is recreate that process to guess how aggressive Joe Hortiz is going to be able to be going into this draft, or sorry, this free agency. Does that make sense, Ryan? Is there anything you think I need to clear up for our audience?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and you know what, it gives a great framing for us as fans to sort of understand timings of decision making, and also that weighing up of what spending power I have. Because for us, it's just you have a budget, and you can spend that budget, but it's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. And I think it's very interesting that you can go, okay, signing Christian Fulton is the equivalent of spending a 7th round draft pick. We need to compare it to that. Yeah, they've got the upside of the rookie contract, but Christian Fulton's proven in the league as being a better value than a 7th rounder. So it's worth the gamble.
Yeah, and it gets really exciting when you watch. I'm really excited to watch this one play out because I'm sure there's going to be probably like 2 or 3 guys that Joe and Jim say, you know what, we're going to let them test the market. But if they don't get that number that they think that they're going to get, we're okay bringing them back and not getting like, we don't want them to go for what would only net us a 7th round pick. If they're going to sign for $4 or $5 million, we might as well just bring them back for a year or two and hope that they progress in our system in 1 or 2 years. They go back to free agency and maybe they can get us, a 4th or a 5th rounder in the future. And we filled a hole because we do have a lot of cap. We don't want to spend all of that in free agency and lose those picks, right?
We also have a lot of roster spots open.
We do have a lot of roster spots open, and we got some draft picks.
About half. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Ryan, this chart got adjusted. Over the cap has Kenneth Murray's contract pushed down to a 6th, but I think it was Austin Eckler's that through some, I don't know if it was through incentives or whatnot, but they upped him to a 6th as well. So instead of a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th, it's looking like 3 6s might be what we're getting. So we'll see. That's yet to be confirmed, but that's what we're looking at now. And because Austin was a 6 and Christian and Gus were 7ths, that cancellation moved down to where Austin Johnson and Michael Davis got canceled out instead of Austin Eckler. So little bit of extra stuff there, but yeah. So let's dive right in, man. First, we got Elijah Molden. Actually, no, let's start with you, right? Who are your guys that you don't care about cost? You come into, let's say I'm the GM and you're Jim. You're Jim and I'm Joe. You come into my office and you're like, Joe, I can't let these guys escape. I don't care what the cost is. Lock them up for what their agents believe they're worth. Who are those players?
There are 2 guys. So first one, pretty obvious for me, but Khalil Mack. Like his production has been, outstanding. But also it's his presence in the locker room. Like you can't turn that down. Like he lifts everything, and like if we might end up losing veterans like Bosa and other voice of veteran leaders in the room, you can't really afford to lose him. So is that what your projection is?
Yeah. So we have him. Joshua Capo and I come up with values every year for the upcoming free agent class, our projections. He made an incredible algorithm that has basically been tracking what stats correlate with the with contracts, basically. Which ones can you follow to project what a player should be making? And since he started tracking them, the correlations have been incredibly close. Sometimes the times that they're far off is when you get like a deal like what San Francisco did with their cornerback, Lenore, however you say his name. That one had some weird, like a lack of guaranteed money that made it so it's really, even though it's a 5-year deal that paid a certain amount, it really looks like a 3-year deal that will pay a certain amount. So there's some adjustments you have to make sometimes, but overall it's been wildly accurate. And I'm really curious to see how it ends up doing with a whole free agency to look at. And that's a Substack link that I'm going to drop in our description if anyone wants to take a look at it. But yeah, we have Mac at right around 22.5. He's a unicorn. You kind of have to adjust the formula or ignore it because there's not too many 34-year-olds that get paid the way or that have performed the way he has. So we had to go back to and look at historical data for that. Someone like Julius Peppers or something that, just played so well late, or Calais Campbell. But yeah, we're thinking, right around 22.5 for him. Maybe 2 or 3 years if he's willing to do it, or if he just wants to do 1 year flyers from here on out at his age, that's okay. So let's go ahead and plug him in. We've just filled one of our spots, right? So now we've removed a need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take him off our cancellation chart. So let's go ahead and move on to your next one.
The next one is just inside of him on the line, so that's Poonah Ford.
I love it.
I think it's so impactful on the defense as a whole. And every time you go back and look at the tape, your theory of how did the Chargers stop the run so well when they refused to put players in the box and play with 2 high safeties, and the answer is the 5'11", 300-pound man with Poonah himself. Like he just ate double teams all day, but he didn't just eat them, he fought through them. It was just fantastic, and he set up everything around him. The linebackers could tee off him because of it. And the way he elevates players around him, and also, he did it coming off of a season where he basically disappeared at the Buffalo Bills. Still don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
wow, that is a
sorry, go ahead, Ray.
That's an affordable price. That is an affordable price.
Yes. A lot of people might push back on this number, Ryan, but I'm not saying it's going to be a 3 or 4 year deal that he's going to get locked up for. But you look at a guy like Morgan Fox, who was cut by his previous team after signing a decent contract with them. Everyone thought that after having a comeback, prove it year with the Chargers, that he would sign a good amount. But he ended up being retained for a pretty affordable price. It's rare that teams will go out and assign top dollar value to a guy that literally just played on the vet min because he was cut and people didn't really want to pursue him. So Poonah definitely resurrected his value a bit, but you'd expect him to need another season or two before he really gets into the money. So I would expect Poonah to be worth right around 6.5. We got the comps, the algorithm supporting it. If Jesse Minter and Jim go into Joe and say, Joe, we need to sign him, and they don't want him to hit free agency, maybe that number comes up to 7.5 or 8, just because of, like you said, they're like, we need him in this room. But there's not a lot of data that would support him getting up into like the 9 or 10 range. If it happens, great.
Do you think that means that he's leaning towards maybe even a 1 year deal?
He totally could. I wouldn't think that his value would jump up to 15 million off of even a 2-year sample, because when I specifically looked at his contract, Ryan, we measure, one of the things we do, we have 3 different measurements, one that tracks what their previous year would pay them if they replicated it 3 years over. We call that our platform year analysis. Basically, we have another one that, measures it over a 3-year stretch, and another one that kind of gives some weighted values. And even his platform year, if he had been producing that for 3 years straight, he was looking at like a $9 million value, if I remember correctly. I'll have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So it's worth looking into. But I would think he'd be happy with a 2-year deal with some good guarantees, just personally. And like I said, maybe he will need another $1 million to not hit the market. But like we said, that's where we're kind of more comfortable overpaying. You'd put him down as like the nose tackle, right? That's where you'd want me to put him, or you want me to relabel it as DI? Okay. So we got Ford, Dunsky. Now let's move on to the guys that let's go ahead and let's start building this chart out with the guys that you're ready to say, no, we're not re-signing you. Go enjoy free agency. We wish you the best of luck. Thanks for being a Charger.
So there's the bottom of the roster guys. So DJ Chark, no interest, 0. how he had 20 snaps in a playoff game is beyond me. So yeah, he was just out there running routes.
Yeah.
Um, the other one for me is that I'm not interested in signing Josh Palmer.
Gotcha.
So I just don't think he's a reliable person. You know, you can for a wide receiver that's meant to be um, you know available to fill in spots for everyone else because he's got such like a flexibility to move around.
Yeah.
Um, he just isn't on the field enough for that. So and his production doesn't speak for itself. Even though he's a pretty good route runner, he just doesn't seem to have the reliable hands or get open too much. So yeah. Going on to another one.
This is
This one might
fun.
be a
It's,
little bit
it's it's like a
controversial.
game show, Ryan. We're unveiling the prices for those that aren't watching and are just listening. As Ryan's saying this, I'm showing what their values are. And so far, Josh Palmer is at $3 million a year, probably on a 1 or 2 year deal, probably a one. And DJ Chark is taking a slight pay reduction because we paid him, I think, $3 million last year. He didn't do anything,
Mm.
and he's probably the analytics would show it's probably going to be, or algorithm would show it's probably going to be around 2.5 because someone's still going to overpay for his speed. So go ahead, right, Ryan, keep going.
So the next one's a little bit controversial. So I think I'm not interested in Morgan Fox
Whew.
coming back for a in Minter's system of pass rush and DT isn't as valuable as it was um, in Staley's, and I also his production wasn't great. I mean, he got 3.5 sacks, but when you go back and watch those, most of them are cleanups. I think there has one he won himself. So that he has had some highlight moments which fans will remember, which always stays in mind when you consider and bringing players back. But I personally don't think he's going to be worth it at the market he's gonna earn.
So the market right now is saying right around 4.15 on maybe 2 or 3 years. You believe if he comes back to you, Ryan, and says, hey, 4.5 million and I stay, you're still letting him go and you're collecting that seventh?
Absolutely.
All right. All right. We got our first compensatory player on the board that we're willing to dangle.
Nice.
Who do you got next?
The next one is probably the easiest and biggest no for me and every other Chargers fan, which is Asante. Um, I feel like the coaching staff and front office did a cracking collaborative effort to keep his value to this season with non-contact stinger that kept him out for how many weeks. That's one we put in the suspect column. But he was always going to have that value based on the fact he was a top 50 pick before, has had some, he's got his hands on the ball, but it could not suit, be less of a match for Minter's defense.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, he was always going to get us some value coming back in the other direction. So yeah,
I
bye.
love it, man. I love it. That's a great one. And like that's one that we can get, a fourth potentially. But the problem is if we're gonna if we're gonna have a budget this year, that's why before he bombed, Ryan, I think you heard me saying we might want to franchise him if he has a decent season, because we're probably not gonna get a comp pick for him because the first decent free agent we get is probably going to wipe out that contract or that compensatory pick. So it is what it is. It's good that we have it there, but let's see if we'll get any more. So anyone else you're willing to dangle? And for those that are listening and not watching, we're estimating around 13 million a year for Asante Samuel. 13 and 14 million. He's still a guy that got turnovers in the right system. So somebody will pay for that.
Yeah, we can sell that to we can nudge his PR agency, given the highlight all 22 of that Staley saying that's the best pick I've ever seen. Just give that to his agent.
Anyone else you got that you're willing to dangle?
um, I'm not willing to completely let go of the others. So the others
Okay.
I would want to move into the next category.
Let's do that. Let's do that. So these are going to drop them down. So right now we got Zont, We got Fox. Yeah, let's just do this. We still have Denzel, Tier Tart, Bradley Bozeman, J.K. Dobbins, Tyler Heineke, Elijah Molden, and Christian Fulton. Who else are we talking about? Or let's go second. This next category, players that you would like to re-sign at the right price, but if you can't get it done in negotiations, you're going to go ahead and let them go.
So the two at the top of that one that I was almost leaning into the let's re-sign them, Tietar and Elijah Molden. But I think it's worth letting them have a sensible realization, especially Elijah Molden because he got traded for.
Mm-hmm.
His agent might be, well, you already spent some capital on a season where you didn't win anything, you didn't win a playoff game. Like surely you'd want to gain the most value out of that by having him back in the room. So I really want both of them back. Elijah lets Derwin be Derwin and Alohi play on the back end, and Tart means like his speed means. To be honest, Tart coming back means I'm zero interested in Morgan Fox at any price. Yeah,
Gotcha.
so yeah.
Yeah, they were both like Molden was excellent, but he did have some slip ups, and I think that's probably why you're okay with him getting that realization, right? There were times where some mistakes were made in deep coverage, if I remember right, or it could have been another assignment. You're the coach guy. I'll leave that to you. But yeah, I felt kind of the same way where I'm not willing to fully commit. But he could be one of those guys that ends up being a perfect example of somebody we bring in, give an opportunity, and then collect a comp pick from. But would still love to see him in powder blue next year. What about, let's just crank through these next guys top to bottom. Denzel Perriman, you want to keep him, or are you gonna?
I would want to keep him because of a rotational senior leadership role, but at the same time, if some team wants to pay him true starting linebacker money, we shouldn't be competing with that with Diane and hopefully the next step of Junior Colson.
So let's play this, Ryan, off of we'll take them off the board and off this chart if you would sign them for the value that I pulled down. Okay. So for Tier Tart, we've got 4.33 million, 2 years. Would you keep or let him go for 4.3?
Yeah, I'd keep.
Okay.
It's slightly dearer than I had going into this, but this is why you're the money man, and I'm not. So,
Hey, and who knows?
and Molden,
these are educated guesses. We'll see.
yeah, and Molden, yeah, I'd bite your hand off for that. If I'm being honest, I think he played like a genuine, middle field threat. I mean, he led. Did he lead? I think he ended the year leading the team in interceptions. And he, props to Joe Hortiz again for looking at a slot corner, from Washington, a slight slot corner, and going, yeah, that's my free safety. And it works.
And he might be a guy that only does a 1-year deal, but could still be a great guy to have back, and then next year goes out and earns us an even higher comp pick. He's not gonna break the bank coming off of an injury in 1 year of solid production after getting traded for peanuts. Perryman, let's see what he is valued at. We got him for $3 million, probably another 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah, I'll bring him in. He's not going to get a comp pick there.
No, he's not going to get a comp pick. He doesn't represent a huge need based on we don't even have linebacker on our needs list right now because we have some young guys that are coming into their own, but he's still, our linebacker room could just stay the same and I'd be happy and hope that Junior takes that next step and develops. Bozeman, what do you think about
saying that about linebackers? I'm pretty sure Troy Dye and Nick Neiman are out of contract, if I'm right. So it's looking a little thin at the bottom. So so bringing someone of experience back onto that. But then again, we do need some special teamers back there. So it is something to keep in mind.
That's totally fair, man. I love it.
Wow, I was team keep Bozeman at affordable rotational piece, but not at that price. I'm out.
That's a heavy one, right?
I wanted continuity, even if he wasn't going to play. But you can't have a cheerleader at 5.25. No.
So that would be 5.25 1 year is what we had, is what
Mm.
the algorithm was saying. Who knows what that actually turns out to be? But he was healthy, consistent, played the whole season, and was on a playoff team that ran the ball pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see what that does turn into. But especially with the guard market exploding last year, we're kind of predicting that the center market should finally see an uptick. There's just not top tier guys that are moving the needle, that are pushing that. Creed Humphrey kind of did, but who's going to come in and keep that moving? So we might see a decent mid-range market for some of the average to below average centers that at least have been available and healthy. Let's go.
This is the one
Yeah.
one I'm most interested in is JK.
JK for $5 million,
Yeah,
probably $1 million or
I'm
two, or a
keeping him.
year or two.
I'm keeping him for that
Keeping
cost.
keeping
I
JK
have
for $5
been
million.
I've been very vocal about how I think J.K. Dobbins is one of the best backs in the league, and if he got a line that could block for him, and in the same season that he could stay healthy for, I think he could do fantastic things.
So we'll plug him
His
in as the starter.
yeah, 5 million. You'd hope he'd be the workhorse, and then we can draft someone in to be an actual threat when he's not on the field.
What do you think about Taylor Heineke? This one's controversial.
I hate backup quarterback contracts as a coach. Though.
6.67.
Yeah, I'm actually keeping him for
You're
that.
going to keep him for 6.6. Wow.
Yeah. I was
Wow.
looking at the free agent quarterback market, and I have zero interest in it whatsoever. And it's someone who we spent capital on, had to consider that. We spent capital on already, and well, the only thing I didn't see was the comp pick. What was the comp pick on him?
Oh, sorry. Comp pick would be a 6th rounder, which is funny
I
because
mean,
isn't that
that
what we
earns back.
basically traded for him?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's what we traded for him, so it would earn that back within a year, maybe to a better draft class. We're not quite sure about that far ahead, but with backup quarterbacks, they need to know the system better than the starters, because they haven't got the talent of the starters, right? So the fact that he came in middle of last season means he's had that sort of time on the bench, and we're losing Easton Stick. I'm assuming we're not going to resign him again. So I feel like a little bit of continuity for Herbert, Shane Day would be a positive thing. Backup quarterbacks, I mean, they can earn an okay one can get like 10 mil. So yeah,
Yeah. All right. I love it.
6.67 isn't that bad.
Yeah. And that's one that it is based on, stats and production. And he has had stats as a starter that, that gave him a $7 million contract, a $7 million a year contract 2 years ago, which in today's cap dollars would be more. But with him not playing, it's harder to ascertain what that value will be. So maybe it does go up, but he's probably a perfect example of a guy that they will let hit free agency. And if the offers aren't, if somebody comes in and overpays, kind of like a Gardner Minshew got overpaid last year, maybe they do just let him go, and that gets added back to our compensatory pick cancellation chart. But for the time being, I'm with you. If we can bring him in at a decent price and we have a good backup quarterback, that's solid. Christian Fulton. This one, I teased this one to you already, but 5.85. What do you think?
I would be out at that price, honestly.
I'm with you, man.
I have been saying that there have been some games from Christian Fulton where he showed the upside. That means the Titans held on to him so long, and that we've had him as a starter, even though Cam Hart was coming through and Taheeb was coming through. So I feel quite strongly that he would have been a good rotational piece or a backup piece, but we have still got Dean Leonard under contract, and for me, he would be above him on the depth chart anyway heading into next season. So for me, there's no value in having him at that kind of price.
I like it, man. So that basically puts us. I'll just do this. I discovered how to sort a range like this right before this call, but then I forgot already. So forgive me for not knowing how to use sheets as well as I should, everybody. But so that's basically our chart now. We've got it locked in at 6 players, 2 that might be fringe guys. Maybe Josh does get 4 million from Kellen Moore, from Lombardi, who knows, and then creeps into that the back end of that 7th round. But right now, you kind of have an idea, Ryan, of how aggressive we can be in free agency. We're going to lose that 4th round pick pretty quickly. So Joe's got to make a decision. Are we going to be okay with just a 6th and a 7th? And then maybe I go big on 2 free agents, because the nice thing is we're not going to get spillover for the most part. If we sign 2 guys that would be like 3rd round values because they're $20 million each, let's just say, that doesn't wipe out our whole chart. It's just going to wipe out our top 2 contracts. So we'll still get the 6th and the 7th for Fulton and Fox. But I think our next assignment and our next video is going to be you and me discussing, with you taking the lead, what 1 or 2 free agents you would want to target that are going to be compensatory free agents. So not anybody that gets cut, somebody that does hit the open market, the 2 guys that you want to build that free agency around, and then maybe a 3rd option if somebody like Heineke does go to free agency and bring in a surprise pick, or if Palmer and Chark bring us a surprise pick, who might we shift to the way that we shifted to Fulton last year?
It's a great way of looking at things. As fans, we go into the off season with a big budget and just want to, spend it all. But there's ways of where you target that money, and numbers and timing that you really have to consider. And that's what makes exercises like this really worth doing. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting task. I really like linear progression between things. So yeah, that helps my mind rather than veering off in every direction like it tends to do.
Well, right on, guys. That's all we have today. We're going to attack the free agency in more ways, shapes, and forms on Powder Keg Podcast moving forward. And be sure to visit Stormcloud. We're going to have this posted here. There'll be a lot of discussion on that site and YouTube as well. I guess we're kind of new to this, but subscribe, follow, hit the button, whatever. But thanks for coming and joining us, guys. That's what we really care about, because this is a lot of fun. We have a great time doing it. So looking forward to the next video with you, Ryan.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun. See you on the next one.